Casting a big Hollywood movie isn't easy, but finding the grown-up versions of the Losers Club came with special challenges. Not only did these stars have to agree to come face-to-face with Pennywise, but they had to look like plausible grown-up versions of the kids from the first movie. Oh, and they have to be willing to deal with having Losers Club on their resume from now on. We'll talk about how the adult star cast landed their roles, and which child star wasn't happy about who got picked to portray them. The movie It Chapter 2 brought back the child stars from the first film and brought in adult actors to play the current-day losers. But one problem with working with child stars is that they grow up. In just a couple years, the kids had changed so much that they had to be digitally de-aged in order to look younger when filming the second time around. You probably noticed this in the movie because, well, it's seriously Uncanny Valley. Seriously, some of the de-aging looks so creepy and unnatural it gives Pennywise a run for his money. Finn Wolfhard needed the most dramatic de-aging because of how much he's grown since the first movie. Just compare his character from Season 3 of Stranger Things to Richie from It Chapter 2. Jack Dylan Grazer also needed some serious help, and the studio even seriously considered bringing in a voice actor to dub his lines because of his voice changing so dramatically. In fact, the cast was instructed to speak in more high-pitched voices, which were then edited in post-production. But if you can't get over the unsettling de-aging process, just concentrate on Sophia Lillis, the star who needed the least amount of de-aging. So did the child actors mentor the adults? It turns out there wasn't a ton of interaction between the adult cast and the kids from the first movie. Instead, the cast relied primarily on the first movie to get a feel for their characters. Of course, some of them actually read the book, but that's apparently an even more frightening option. James McAvoy said he had nightmares about the book, including one in which Pennywise was laying next to him in bed stroking his back. Okay, we're not going to try to analyze that dream. When the original kids were cast, Jaden Martell was the only one with a film career, having been in movies like St. Vincent and Aloha. Of course, this was before Stranger Things made Finn Wolfhard a household name. But when it was time to cast the second movie, the studio had tons of stars to choose from. Everyone loved the idea of being in It Chapter 2, but only a select few would make it. In fact, the only person director Andy Muschietti couldn't get was Guillermo del Toro, who he wanted to have a cameo in the film. Hiring a grown-up Ben Hanscom was something of a challenge, since his transformation was more than just growing up. It was a total glow-up. So the studio had Jay Ryan submit photos of himself as a young boy so they could be compared to photos of Jeremy Ray Taylor, who plays young Ben. Both Jeremy and Jay agree they have similar eyes and uncannily similar mannerisms. Casting an adult Richie Tozier was challenging, but luckily Finn Wolfhard had some thoughts on the matter. Apparently, Wolfhard said his dream would be for Bill Hader to play an older version of him. 3 months later, Hader's agent called him to arrange a meeting with It Chapter 2 director Andy Muschietti. Not only is Hader grateful to Wolfhard, but he sees the resemblance too. He described them both as kind of gangly weirdos, which is just a little harsh. However, Hader was also a little apprehensive about being in a horror movie, mostly because he's prone to getting frightened. According to Hader, he once made a mistake of watching 28 Weeks Later and had a full-on panic attack right in the beginning of the movie. Chosen Jacobs and Isaiah Mustafa both portray Mike Hanlon, the sole member of the Losers Club who remained in Derry after Pennywise was defeated. Then we have James Ranson, who plays an adult Eddie Kasprak. While he admits he didn't see the first movie when it was in theaters, his brother did, and couldn't get over how much James looks like Jack Dylan Grazer. Although he didn't see the movie in theaters, he did audition for It Chapter 1. So when it came time to cast the second movie, he was already on Andy Muschietti's radar. While most of the child stars were content with their adult counterparts, Wyatt Oleff had some thoughts on the matter. He flat out told Andy Bean that he had been hoping to be played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt instead. Hey, we'd all like to grow up and be Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but let's try and be realistic here. But some members of the Losers Club were much easier to cast. In fact, Jessica Chastain was Beverly Marsh before the first movie even wrapped up. Director Andy Muschietti says he very nearly included a stinger at the end of Chapter 1, which revealed Chastain as an adult Beverly. He and Chastain worked together on the movie Mama, and apparently she was his top choice in It Chapter 2. James McAvoy was also a no-brainer for the role of an adult Bill Denbrough. Not only was he Muschietti's first choice, but he also helped come up with a scene that isn't based on the book. We'd hardly call it a spoiler since it's featured in the trailer, but if you still haven't seen the movie or the trailer, you may want to come back later. Chapter 2 involves a scene in which Bill chases a little boy who resembles Georgie through a hall of mirrors. Remember when we said McAvoy was more than a little bit traumatized by the book? Well, in addition to some creepy dreams, he also landed some major inspiration about Bill's backstory, and the guilt he felt about his role in Georgie's disappearance. We know Pennywise haunted McAvoy's dreams, but what was it like working with Pennywise in real life? According to McAvoy, Bill Skarsgard is a lovely guy who just so happens to be terrifying in his Pennywise getup. McAvoy admits to finding him terrifying and says he and the other adult actors were unnerved around him on set. We all know how Bill Hader feels about Pennywise behind the scenes. But the truth is that even Bill Skarsgard admits to having nightmares about Pennywise the dancing clown, and he's the man under the makeup. And yes, he does the creepy smile and the one eye roll all on his own without any help from post-production. Skarsgard says he even managed to unnerve the VFX team working on the movie. Although, maybe the scariest part of the movie is the fact that actress Molly Atkinson not only plays Eddie's mother Sonia, but his wife Myra. Yikes! For Jessica Chastain, the most terrifying part of working on the movie wasn't Pennywise, but one scene involving Beverly being absolutely bathed in fake blood. According to the actress, about 4,500 gallons of this sticky dark liquid was used, and being doused in it is about as much fun as it sounds. Not only was it freezing cold and sticky, but it made it so she couldn't see anything around her. It also made it difficult for the rest of the cast and crew to tell when she genuinely hurt herself on set. While running through the caves, Chastain stood up too quickly and banged her head, and this star isn't ashamed to admit it made her cry. To make matters worse, the cast couldn't tell which of the red stuff was the genuine thing or a result of special effects. The scares were fake, but many of the injuries were all too real on the scene of this movie. Bill Hader confessed he managed to seriously hurt himself while running away from Pennywise. He ran a few feet before pulling a muscle in a very sensitive area and having to be rushed off for an ultrasound. Although Hader recovered, his injury meant relying on a stunt double for most of the movie. This was in contrast to his co-star James McAvoy, who insisted on doing the majority of his own stunt work. But even though he managed to power through, McAvoy later admitted that he had suffered some long-lasting injuries as a result of working on the movie. He had to redo the same scene so many times that he ended up tearing his quads and suffering from tendinitis for an excruciating 6 months after filming Wrapped. Isaiah Mustafa admitted to injuring himself while filming one of the first scenes in the movie. He says the scene in which the adult losers meet up at a Chinese restaurant started out fun, with everyone goofing around and getting to know one another. That is until Mustafa broke his hand. It turns out breaking chairs isn't as much fun as it looks, and to be fair, the movie did make it look pretty fun. Mustafa claims he ended up breaking a small bone in his hand, and the area between his right index finger and thumb was numb for the rest of filming. Not only did Bill Hader end up hurting himself, but he also discovered a serious acting challenge. During one scene, Richie is supposed to cry while standing in water, but Hader had trouble getting the tears going. He claims Muschietti was trying to talk to him about sad things, but nothing would get the tears going. Eventually, Hader broke down over the fact that the water he was standing in was so cold and made him so miserable. But he wasn't the only actor freezing on set. In the trailer for It Chapter 2, we were introduced to Joan Gregson, who plays kindly old Mrs. Kirsch, who definitely isn't a secret ancient alien. Before she transforms with special effects, we see her do a super creepy freeze while she's talking to Beverly. According to Jessica Chastain, that unsettling freeze was 100% real. Although the actors were going off a script based on a novel, they still got to bring some improvisation to the set. When the Losers Club ventures into the sewers to confront Pennywise, Richie and Eddie find themselves confronting a terrible nightmare creature. Hader and Ranson were given the freedom to improve their reactions to this scary confrontation. But while filming another scene, Ranson had a reaction that was definitely no laughing matter. Everyone, including Pennywise, knows his character Eddie is a hypochondriac, which is why we see it take the form of a leper in both the first and second movies. In the second movie, Eddie comes face to face with the leper who proceeds to throw up all over him. Not only was this absolutely disgusting, but it was almost dangerous. Ranson says he had trouble breathing due to the heavy stream of liquid overwhelming him. It was so bad Ranson nearly lost consciousness at one point. But at least his fellow castmates were amused, since Andy Muschietti recorded Ranson's reactions before, during, and after the scene. Bill Hader says watching that footage was his favorite moment on the set of It Chapter 2. But we want to know what your favorite moment from the movie was. Share it with us in the comment section below, along with what you thought of the casting calls from It Chapter 2. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button for more videos from us here at CBR. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.